Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 14 of Stat Chasing. Was a really interesting week to break down. We had major quarterback injuries for two key contenders in Baltimore and San Francisco. A drastic backfield shakeup in Buffalo, where James Cook seems to have overtaken Singletary for the lead role. Continued elite wide receiver performances from Diggs, Devontae, and Tyreek. And one more vintage Brady comeback on Monday night. Pat, I'm glad you're here to join this week for Connor. How was your week?
My week was pretty good. Capped off with a Rachaad White game-winning touchdown. Probably good sign if Tom Brady's about the happiest he's been all season because of the player you have the most exposure to in best ball. I felt good. And then also, we could use those points. I think Chris G, he had a sweat going where he needed Rachaad White, and he saved the day. So
I had
a lot of ship chasing fans there are in on Rachaad White.
Yeah, that was huge for me too. I actually had a home league where I needed a win to have a chance to make the playoffs, and I was down by 4 last play of the game. Rachaad White catches that touchdown. I actually thought it was done because Fournette, I think, had been in for that whole drive.
He'd been in for the whole drive.
Yeah.
Didn't bring him in until the very last play.
Yeah, I guess he's a little out of shape. Fat Lenny couldn't stay in for the last couple plays.
No one would ever accuse him of that.
Yeah. So yeah, good to see White. Good to see James Cook. So I think a lot of rookies, running backs, and wide receivers we'll get to. Seems like my redacted shares could finally be on the up. So just to give everyone an overview, we're gonna go through the normal stat chasing charts and stuff that I do every week here. And then at the end, Pat and I are gonna focus in on the Underdog playoff best ball contest. So we'll do some draft streams at the end of the show. But yeah, why don't we jump in to the charts, starting with quarterback. Cool. So here, starting with quarterback, same chart as always. We have TD rate here on the y-axis, and adjusted yards per attempt on the x-axis, as well as quarterback rushing yards per game shown for the sides of the bubbles here. So you see guys like Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, more of the rushing quarterbacks really pop here. Pat, I think a lot of the stuff at quarterback has stabilized, and for people who've watched the show, I don't think we need to continue to talk about players we talked about a lot before. So in the spirit of that, I'm curious on your take for two quarterbacks that seem like they're going to get some starts here down the stretch for playoff teams, in Brock Purdy for San Francisco and Tyler Huntley for Baltimore. I guess let's start with Huntley because he's a little bit more of a known commodity. We've seen a bit of him last year in Baltimore. How are you viewing Huntley in sort of like the streaming quarterback mix for the next couple weeks, assuming he gets a few starts here?
I mean, the issue is that all of this stuff becomes a lot more complicated with a lot of waivers closing down as we head into the playoffs and everything. So it's hard to just say because the simple take, the take I want to make is he's a great streaming option, and he's got the exact same type of skill set as Lamar Jackson. He's just not quite as good, and we saw that last year. He can support Mark Andrews. We would imagine he certainly did last year. So, and there's nothing else really to support in the offense anyway. So, yeah, I mean, he feels like a very comfortable streamer. The issue is are you comfortable going into a playoff format with him as your backup quarterback? And I think you probably are, because to be honest, in a lot of these formats, if you lose your starting quarterback, you're going to be in really rough shape anyway. So you might as well have someone with rushing upside to go to war with, even though there's a worst case scenario where Lamar comes back and then maybe you wouldn't. You've picked up Huntley and now he's worth nothing to you. So that definitely complicates things. But I think Huntley will be pretty serviceable here for fantasy purposes. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel similarly. You mentioned a similar skill set to Lamar. I feel like more of a film take here, but their mannerisms are weirdly similar when they're on the field. I don't know if you feel that way, but it's not just they're kind of archetype of play, but it's like their actual physical motion on the field looks very similar. It's funny watching them.
Stronger immune system for Huntley, which we do like.
Yeah, stronger immune system, it seems. And maybe he gets breakfast with Mark Andrews more than Lamar does.
Yeah,
I don't know. He seems to really feed him. But yeah, to your question, I feel the same way. There is definitely the nuance. Like, you got to consider your format. If I'm in a format where, more of a home league format where waivers are not locked, you can add and drop these guys, and I need a streamer this week. I know there's, a bunch of teams on bye. I think I'm targeting Huntley pretty aggressively, considering the other alternatives might be like Kenny Pickett, Brock Purdy, like in these leagues where a bunch of the quarterbacks are scooped up. I'm pretty excited about Huntley. I think I view him as like a low end quarterback one streamer this week with all the buys.
Yeah, that feels right. I mean, Pickett has some nice matchups coming up, but I feel like he almost has to crush to be as comfortable a start as Huntley would end up being, just because the rushing's so much stronger with Huntley.
Yeah, Huntley, I think, had around 40 yards rushing and a touchdown this past week. So he's going to give you a lot of the Lamar rushing stuff in Baltimore, which is definitely exciting. Another guy I really, to be honest, know nothing about, Brock Purdy in San Francisco. I'm curious if you have like any thoughts on Purdy. I know he did like a decent Jimmy G impression in the game last week, sort of a lot of dump offs, lower yards per attempt, lower adjusted yards per attempt than we see out of Jimmy G, but he won them the game against Miami and seemed decent enough. So I'm curious if you have any takes on Purdy, if you like looked at him at all when you're looking at dynasty prospects, or any like bigger thoughts on Purdy. I'm curious.
Not really. We have some small sample on him. I guess he wasn't terrible. He was 13th in EPA per play on the week. I believe he was 10th in success rate, 9th in success rate. So he wasn't terrible as far as the efficiency goes. Even his accuracy, he was 16th in completion percentage over expected between Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert. So he's not Kyle Allen, which counts for something. I guess the issue, I don't think we're starting Purdy anywhere. I mean, he would be kind of a super flex, like best ball type of pickup. If you have active waivers there, but I mean, I don't really see how else you're playing. So it's more about how he's supporting the 49ers skill players, of which, there's a ton of guys we're interested in. It feels like maybe this is better for McCaffrey than everybody else. Probably a lot of checkdowns, dump offs. He was tied for the team lead in targets against Miami. So, that's probably what's driving that opinion to some extent, but also, I don't know, it's just sort of a logical way I think this might go. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think I feel similar. What I've been trying to think about, and maybe we'll get to it more when we talk about the best ball stuff, is how much does the drop off from Jimmy G to Purdy impact the 49ers playoff odds and chances of making the Super Bowl? Because before this injury, I think they were like the consensus, at least in betting markets, number 3 team out of the NFC after the Eagles and the Cowboys to make it to the Super Bowl. So yeah, maybe we can table that discussion for when we talk about the best.
Because Jimmy has a chance to come back for the playoffs, right? Or in the playoffs. There was a report today about that.
I thought it was 2 months, if I remember right.
So maybe it would be like for the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah, that's what it seems. Like, I guess if you trust that timeline enough, it could be Super Bowl. Maybe he comes back a little quicker and is available for the championship game. But
yeah, you're right. It's 7 to 8 weeks, so put him available around the divisional rounds or NFC championship game is what we have on Roto World.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. I have to think it hurts their chances significantly. Jimmy was like playing pretty well this year. But yeah, I think that's something interesting to monitor over the next couple of weeks to see. We have seen in the past in San Francisco when CJ Beathard, Nick Mullins, these guys come in and they like seem to do a decent Jimmy G impersonation and get San Francisco some wins. I'll be curious to see if Purdy can continue that trend of the backup quarterbacks playing well, or if we're going to see a major drop off in San Francisco. Kind of wait and see there, I think.
5.4 ADOT for Brock Purdy, which is ultra low. So, I mean, he certainly was checking down a lot. I think it's probably pretty – I think Ayuk had, 9 targets or something last week?
Yeah.
So, it was fine for him last week, I guess, but he would be the guy – him and Kittle, it's like a little concerning for. Debo's probably – maybe Debo gets more of that, like, short, like, running back style stuff. So, maybe he's okay. And then I think McCaffrey will be fine, but – yeah, it definitely makes all of them riskier bets in the playoff formats for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's move on to running back here. So looking at this chart, we're now looking at running back expected fantasy points and efficiency. Here on the y-axis, we have receiving expected fantasy points per game. On the x-axis, we have rushing. If you add those together, you get a sense of a running back's total workload in terms of expected points. A lot of things here that we've seen for a while. Austin Eckler's receiving usage is insane, kind of lapping the field. Josh Jacobs just receiving monster rushing volume with a healthy receiving volume as well. We've been seeing that for weeks. I think maybe the most interesting discussion here in the AFC, Pat, is the Buffalo backfield. I think people maybe have sort of forgot about it because it was on Thursday night, but we saw James Cook overtake Singletary in that game, sort of all across the board. He saw 16 routes to Singletary's 13. He saw 6 targets to Singletary's just 2, and he actually out-carried Singletary 14-13 in that game. So I guess the question for you, do you think that's like a 1 week blip sort of based on, Thursday night weirdness, or do you think this is sort of the beginning of the James Cook takeover in Buffalo?
Man, I want to think it's the beginning of the Cook takeover. He looks so good. I don't tend to rely on the eye test a ton, but he crushes the eye test. He's also been running well. Like if you look at rush yards over expected per attempt, which is an NFL Next Gen stat that I really like, he's been doing very well in that the last few weeks, or the last couple times that he's gotten work. 43% of the snaps though this past week, which is pretty low. So it's like hardly, if he was in the 60s or even the high 50s, I think we feel a lot better that this was something where they're actually like installing him as the lead guy. Instead, Singletary was at 44%, Cook was at 43%, and Hines was at 31%. And they had just been playing, I can't remember what the stat is, but they played 3 games in, a short period of time because they had the Thanksgiving game, Sunday, Thanksgiving, and then the following Thursday. So they never, it could simply be that they were trying to preserve Singletary's health, who played 78% of snaps in week 12, played 72% of snaps in week 11. So then in the third game of these 3 tightly scheduled games, they then go to Cook a lot more. And we also saw Nyheim Hines 31% of snaps when he's been really an afterthought. So I think you could make like a fairly strong case that this is like nothing, that, Singletary is still going to be the lead guy. We'll see him this week at like, let's say 65% of snaps. And Cook will see more than he used to, but he'll be, in the low 30s or something. And there's not much fantasy value in that type of role. I think that's very plausible, but he looks so good. He also has an elite yards per route run. He only has like 75 routes. So, you take that with a big grain of salt, but everything, basically no matter what phase of the game or, what he's being asked to do, he's crushing it. I think they will increase his role. It's maybe a little Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott in that Singletary is pretty good in terms of success rate and kind of is a decent chunk play runner, but Cook is where the explosion's coming from.
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. And I think I kind of agree. Like, I do think this is the beginning of James Cook having a bigger role in the offense, but I'm not expecting some like linear takeover where Singletary gets relegated all of a sudden. I think it'll be kind of more up and down before we see that. And yeah, the other thing I wanted to note in that game, I think just adding up the snap counts for these three backs, I think about on 20% of offensive plays or something in that range, they actually had two running backs on the field. And from watching that game, I remember seeing a lot of shotgun formations with both Hines and James Cook out there. And I hadn't remember really seeing that at all before this past week. So I wonder if that was almost sort of like a new offensive package that they opened up on Thursday night. So I'm curious to see.
It's funny you mentioned that. I sometimes I'll like go too far down the rabbit hole on something in the walkthrough, and then I'm like, I probably should have gotten 2 games done in the span that I wrote about that one thing. And one of those things this week was the Bills' offensive personnel, because I noticed 2 weeks ago, and I wrote about this in the Thanksgiving walkthrough. I was like, I don't know what they're going to do here, because last week they went with a lot of heavy personnel in a kind of an odd way, or a way that had not been very typical at all of what the Bills had done to that point this season. And they went back to a lot of 11 personnel against the Lions. They operated out of 11 personnel on 88% of their offensive plays against the Lions, which was actually above their rate heading into week 10, when they shifted to kind of these heavy personnel sets against the Browns. But then they went back to it against the Patriots. And it's not just they went back to heavy personnel, which they did. Their use of 11 personnel fell to 53%. It was at 49% against the Browns. So very similar rate, and they're typically up in like the high 70s, 80s. So a big shift in terms of both. It's both 2 tight end and 2 running back sets that they're shifting away. It's kind of, I'd say it's more the 2 running backs, but they are using some 2 tight ends as well. And those power personnel groupings are generally better for running the ball. And in both games, they had a negative pass rate over expected. Those are the only 2 games all season that the Bills have posted a negative pass rate over expected. Not only that, the only 2 games they've been below a 5% pass rate over expected. They're almost always like a truly pass heavy team, like every single week, pass heavy game plans. But 2 of the last 3 weeks, they've been run first to run heavy with power personnel on the field. This matchup kind of sets up where you might want to go with more power personnel, given that we have this very strong Jets defense. They're actually not that strong on the run. The Bills struggled against them the last time they played. The pass rush here could maybe create a little bit of trouble. In particular, the Bills are letting up quick pressures at a pretty high rate, and the Jets are decent at generating those. So I'm kind of thinking of them maybe like a little bit more like Miami when once they got Jeff Wilson, and not that they went like run heavy. I mean, Miami's still very much like a run first or a pass first team, but they can keep the defense a little bit more off balance. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if they might do that again and kind of like pick their spots a little bit more with the passing game this week. And maybe we get more rushing attempts than we're used to with the Bills again this week.
Yeah, I would buy that. Those are interesting notes on the Jets defense. Didn't realize that. So yeah, I would definitely be monitoring that. I think that's 2 things to watch this week: the split between Cook and Singletary, and just the overall sort of structure on the Bills offense. If they continue sort of trending towards run heavy, that certainly would be something to note. I guess a couple other quick hits here in the AFC. Zonovan Knight on the Jets continued to show out pretty well and earned a fairly large role in New York. I would actually expect at this point for him to maintain a role even when Carter comes back, which could be as early as this week. But yeah, I think you can fire up Zonovan Knight with relative confidence. And then in KC, just wanted to note, they really are sort of continuing to define the roles of Pacheco and McKinnon. We did see McKinnon get a little bit more involved running the ball this week, and Pacheco a little bit more involved running routes this week compared to normal. But still, it's a pretty clear split here between the rushing and receiving role. As you can see in the chart, Pacheco all the way on the right with basically just rushing expected fantasy points. McKinnon sort of on that top left side there with just receiving expected fantasy points. So it's a pretty.
You need to find a back who can combine these roles, please.
Oh man, yeah, that would be fun. Ronald Jones, maybe.
He's not that guy. As much as I love him, he would literally be even further down than Pacheco. Pacheco's already the baseline.
Yeah, I guess the only guy that I think McKinnon can do both, and maybe they're saving that a little for the playoffs. But yeah, I was gonna say maybe Melvin Gordon could get a role and do a little bit of both.
Please,
but I don't think
he's been so bad as a rusher. He's just worse McKinnon.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, which is also what CEH is. There's no one. They don't have anyone who can do it, who can do both things. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's funny. The most explosive running back in this team was someone who was widely known for having dead legs as of 3 years ago.
Yeah, we were calling this dead legs McKinnon like year, 2 years ago. Yeah. Now he's by far the freshest legs.
Oh man, they need some talent there in KC. But yeah, anything else that you want to note on the AFC? I think that's all I had for these guys.
I mean, Ramondre.
Yeah,
love to see it. What was his snap? Wasn't it something crazy? Like he had like 97% snap share.
I think Kevin Harris only had one snap. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. That's right. Kevin Harris had one snap. Ramondre Stevenson had 53 of 54 snaps for a 98% snap share. 98%.
Yeah,
that's wild.
And Kevin Harris's one run, I do remember because I watched this game. He like ran into his own lineman like really hard, almost like not as bad as like the butt fumble. Obviously, he didn't fumble it, but it was like that style of running into your own lineman. And he never played after that. So I'm not expecting him to get more involved next week.
No, he's not about to make a move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good to know for Ramondre. Yeah, let's take a look at the NFC chart here. Again, yeah, I think here the interesting thing to discuss is probably similar to Buffalo and Tampa Bay. We have Rachaad White coming on strong the past couple weeks. Fournette did return and outsnapped White somewhat considerably. He had 48 snaps to Rachaad White's 33. He had 32 routes to Rachaad White's 21. But White did see more targets than Fournette, about the same amount of carries, 9 to 10 to Fournette. So, yeah, as I watched this game, Pat, I thought it was just sort of like a pure rotation of drives, and the discrepancy in snaps could almost be attributed to just like which running back's drives lasted longer. Like there was some like substitutions within drives, but that was kind of rare. I don't know. Did you see like Fournette really taking a true lead on White there, or do you think it's like basically 50-50 in terms of usage?
It seemed like a lot of Fournette at the very end of the game.
Yeah.
Where not only are those pretty valuable, although there weren't very many passes to the running backs as it turned out on those particular drives, but obviously like a hurry up roll would be important to have when the play here is for both guys is they need to have the pass catching work. So that was definitely concerning. But then obviously White comes in for the final play, scores the touchdown. I thought ran like a really nice route, like kind of understood where he needed to be and gets in the end zone. So that obviously makes you feel like, hey, okay, sure. Fournette had the edge, this week, but maybe that doesn't end up being the case going forward. We've already seen Rachaad White start one game over a healthy Fournette. I've seen him play well. He got 90% of the snaps when Fournette was out. Mm-hmm. So they definitely trust him. I wouldn't be like, I think it's probably, you got to consider this kind of like a 50-50 timeshare right now. And I wouldn't be too worried that it goes to like Fournette 70-30 up from 60-40 last week. But at the same time, if it is 60-40 again, we're going to need a touchdown for White to pay off. And he's not going to get in the end zone every week.
Yeah, I feel similar. I think it's close to 50-50. I do think if I was forced to pick one just for the rest of the year, like just projecting their points out, I think I would give a slight edge to Lenny. I think he's more likely to earn the goal line touches. I don't actually remember in this game if they had a goal line carry. Not that I can recall. I could be missing something, but I don't know. Just from the eye test, which is what we have to go off of, White doesn't look great running on the interior, and with Fournette's size and sort of history in that offense, I'd have to guess that he's more likely to earn the goal line and short yardage carries. But again, that's more of a guess than something.
I agree with the idea that he's in better position for that work. It's just like that's not really the work you want to have the edge on. I think like if White is able to take more of the receiving work, then you'd rather have that in this offense. Like, they're so ineffective on the ground. They're not this juggernaut offense that we thought that they might be, and they have been in the past. They really only look good when it's the very last drive of the game and they just have to pass. Right? It's not it's not an offense and coach marriage that really works. Like Bowles doesn't want this team. Like he would just like he would trade himself to the Falcons if he could. He would much rather be doing that.
Bowles is also, I mean, he's punting on like, the opposing team's 45 on 4th and 5, and you can tell Brady just hates it. He's doing all these cowardly things out there that Brady hates.
And while you might be right that Fournette is a better bet to outscore White, I think if one of these guys hits big, it's White. So I would be drafting White ahead in playoff formats personally.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd flip a coin. I think it's really close. But yeah, I can see the argument for White. I think he definitely has more upside. I guess I'm just thinking like if someone's gonna have like if the Bucs offense does come back and someone's gonna have like a 3-touchdown game from goal line carries, like I would put the money in Fournette. But I definitely think White has bigger upside to break away long runs, rack up like 10 catch games or whatever. So
Stephanie asked in the chat, she points out that he had a fumble in this game, lost it.
Yeah.
Do you think that affected his, because I don't think it's going to affect anything going forward after he's the hero, right? But maybe it affected the playing time a little bit this week.
Maybe it did, and maybe that's why like Fournette maybe got back-to-back drives at the end before White came in. But yeah, the fact that he got the game-winning touchdown, I don't think that's
the fact that he was on the field for that play at all is bullish in its own right, and then he did it.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall we can feel good about White going forward. Other things I wanted to note.
I feel he's a little Tony Pollard. It's a similar thing to like Cook and Pollard for me with those guys, where it's like, it's not all great. And we're also seeing like the Pollard snap share is getting more and more tilting, where he's back to like the 40% of a 60-40 with Zeke. And we'll probably see it again this week, because like they're going to be salting this game away against the Texans. Why do they need to be? They should be, honestly, like the intelligent move there is to play Zeke over Pollard. But a similar thing where you're like, you have the more talented back in White and Cook and Pollard, but you may not have the guy with more playing time. I still feel like that's where you want to be, because we're more confident that the talent is with that guy. But it's like, it feels a little shaky for sure.
Yeah. So a couple things I wanted to go off there. I guess like first on White, the reason I'm hesitant to compare him to those guys, and I know you weren't like directly comparing them, is I'm just
Pollard is much, much, much more explosive.
Yeah. Like when you watch White versus Cook and Pollard, like they don't look in the same caliber of player. And it could be this Tampa Bay offense that's holding back White, but I think he looks okay. Like I think he looks like competent as a pass catcher, good hands, like decent route runner. But when he gets the ball in space, I don't know. He doesn't look that fast, that explosive.
No.
So
Pollard's the fastest guy on the field. He's probably the best guy on the field. Well, maybe that's hyperbolic with CeeDee Lamb's out there, Dak, etc. But he's really good. Pollard's way better. But it is more. But the talent gap is still pretty big between White and Fournette, I think, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think if you look at like the advanced metrics, they both rank in like the back half of things, but Fournette's like near the very end, and White's more like middling in general. And
White's popped some weeks. And actually that's similar to Cook, where James Cook hasn't, like for the season, it doesn't rank all that well in some stuff, but he's had some weeks where you're like, okay. And so I think both those, which is kind of what you'd expect for both guys being rookies, I think.
Okay, and the other thing I want to note on Dallas, so I wish I could find this, but So yeah, you mentioned the Pollard snap counts this week were down to like the 40% range. Zeke kind of considerably outsnapped him, but I was wondering if I could find the first. I can't dig it up. I thought I saw like the first half snap counts were pretty even, and then Zeke pulled away in the second half when they were up massively.
I might be able to pull that up.
Yeah, I unfortunately don't have that note there, but yeah, I mean, so the final score of that game was what, 54-18 or something. So I'm not sure how much we can take from the snap counts there. But that said, like the dreams of Pollard being at like a 70-30 or even 65-35 to Zeke, like I think those are dead. It's going to return, more to 50-50 or even slightly in Zeke's favor in terms of snaps, which is frustrating. But I think Pollard is still very, very startable. They're a really good offense. They're funneling a lot of looks to the running backs. So I'm just still starting Pollard every single week and not really thinking about it.
They're funneling a lot of carries for sure to the running backs. Like over the last 3 weeks since Zeke has been back, they are combining for an average of 31 carries a game. Both the top two running backs, not all running backs, just Pollard and Zeke are combining for 31 carries a game. And the last 2 games, the Cowboys have had a minus 11% pass rate over expected. They're really leaning on the run game in a really big way. They're going to do that again this week. I think you are firing at both guys. And by the way, you're right with the first half snaps. I'm going to make sure to get this in the walkthrough. Actually, I hadn't thought to look at that. Pollard had 21 snaps, which is exactly what Zeke had in the first half. So, but I mean, I will say that probably doesn't help you this week because there's no way that this game is close in the second half. Like absolutely 0% chance. So
did you say it was versus the Texans this week?
Yeah, they're playing the Texans. I mean, it's a joke. So I think, I mean, just alone, like the Dallas defense versus Davis Mills or Kyle Allen. I mean, they probably shouldn't even play this game.
No,
it's going to be terrible.
It's going to be so bad. I feel like Malik Davis is going to have like 3 touchdowns in this game somehow. It's going to be disgusting.
They probably should play a lot of Malik Davis. But the one thing too that's not great for Pollard is that he ranks awesome in rush yards over expected per attempt. He's great in breakaway yards per game. He's second in both metrics. He's running back 7 in yards per route run. He's running back 1 in fantasy points over expected per game. But his success rate's kind of whatever, like the consistency isn't his strong suit. It's all it's big plays. He's a big play receiver. He's a big play rusher. Zeke's really solid in success rate. So, it's a little similar to like Singletary Cook or whatever, where it actually does kind of make sense to use both guys as much as we would rather just have the explosive guy out there for as much as he can handle. But like from a coaching perspective, I kind of get it, especially against a team like the Texans.
Yeah. I think the usage kind of makes sense. Like you said, like Zeke's not playing so bad. I mean, and you don't want it for like your really talented receiving explosive back. Like, why do you want to risk giving them, 10 carries up the gut per game, especially at Pollard's size? Like, I think the usage kind of makes sense. But also, like you said, like, I think it's a good point that, we can bring out the first half snap counts all we want, but it still like takes away from a running back's upside if they are not the one out there to salt the game away. Like, I kind of remember this with Kamara, in years past, where Ingram would get all those touches when the Drew Brees led Saints were up big at the end of games, and like that would cap Kamara's upside a little bit because he's not getting the salt the game away carries. That's not like massive because they're slightly less valuable touches, right? But it's still, you can't completely disregard that. Like, I don't think Pollard's going to ever get those touches based on the usage. So, I think another thing we should talk about is DeAndre Swift in the Lions backfield this week. We did see Swift back to a better role. I think I actually like you may have predicted this on your Good Football Show pod this past week, where I think either you or Kyle or someone
kind of nailed it. Yeah, I said his upside was 50% of snaps.
Yeah, upside was 50. He hit that upside of 50%. So yeah, curious, like that's good, right? He was at like 20 to 30 range, I believe, in the weeks leading up to this. He's back to 50, a lot of the high value touches. That's a good thing. I think you can now like feel comfortable starting him. Do you have any read on if like do you think there's more upside now, or do you still think like the upside is capped around 50 for Swift? 50%.
I mean, I think the bullish thing here for Swift was like I did kind of a back of the napkin calculation to be like, I think, looking at week 12, I was like, I think his upside's probably around 50 because you're still going to get like 40 for Jamal Williams, and that leaves 10 for Justin Jackson, who, we always want these running back threes to go away. They never fully go away usually.
Yeah.
So, give him his 10 and maybe that gets Swift to 50. Swift got to 51, but Justin Jackson was still at 21. So Jamal Williams dropped more than I thought he might. He dropped down to 30%. That would be awesome. So now maybe we can get to 60% if Jackson goes away a little bit more, maybe even the low 60s. So now I feel like your upside target is moved to, let's say, like 60. And that's nice. And you probably feel like I'm definitely getting 40 to 50 with DeAndre Swift. It's still definitely shaky. I don't think it's not like what we drafted. And I don't think he's back to being, like a locked in starter, but he hit the upside projection. I think his upside projection moves up now. And I mean, he looks good and he's producing. So, and I mean, frankly, his offense is just it's pretty good. It's like kind of an offense I don't mind betting on.
No, I think the offense is good. They also, I mean, DJ Chark's back. Josh Reynolds is healthier. Jameson Williams is coming back. Like their offense is getting all their guys back. So I feel good about continuing to bet on the offense. Yeah, the Jamal Williams role like almost breaks my chart here. He's got an insane rushing workload. He's sort of in the bottom right, like below the chart, and just absolutely no receiving workload. It's one of the weirder roles.
He does break your chart.
Yeah. I was trying to think of a historical comparison to the Jamal Williams role. Like, I don't know if it's like Jerome Bettis level role or like what you would compare it to, but it's like insane expected points from goal line carries.
It's like Mike Tolbert.
Yeah, maybe Mike Tolbert. Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. Anyways, a couple other quick notes. I'll let you react to any of that spark your interest. First, Seattle. I think with the Ken Walker injury, I'd be prioritizing Travis Homer ahead of DJ Dallas and Tony Jones, but that is a huge toss-up. We don't really know the health of Dallas or Homer. Homer's dealing with a knee injury. Dallas dealing with a high ankle injury, I believe. And then Tony Jones, I think, is just bad. I'd give the slight edge to Homer just because I think he had been running ahead of Dallas this year up until the injury. So I'm betting that Walker misses some time, and I think Homer's the guy you want, but I would be sort of adding probably the order would be Homer, Dallas, or I don't know, Homer, Jones, Dallas. I think maybe in that order if you're looking for the Seattle running backs. Other thing,
I think it's Homer probably.
Yeah. Low confidence in that, like definitely monitor the injuries this week. But if I like some leagues, I know you have to make your waiver decisions tonight. I would go Homer, but because I think he was a bit of a surprise and active this week. I know they mentioned the knee injury, but I think he was ruled out with the illness more than the knee. So I don't know, but that's a weird one. Definitely monitor it this week.
Other thing, a playoff game like 2 or 3 years ago where they leaned on him as kind of a every snap guy or close to it, I think. And not much of a fantasy relevant dude. He's mostly just soaking up snaps, but I think they trust him.
Yeah. I think that historically, like Homer and Dallas have been on the same team for a couple of years now. I'm not going to do a deep dive into Travis Homer versus DJ Dallas, but my gut and my memory says that they generally like Homer over Dallas. I'm not going to waste my time with that. But yeah, other gross backfield discussion. Cam Akers, shockingly comes back to life this week. If you have to start a Rams running back, you're probably in your consolation bracket if you're looking at Rams running backs now. But I would go with Akers over Kyren Williams. But it's a bit of a ping pong effect there back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what league this would be in, but 72% of snaps, and Kyron was at 71% the previous week. But I'll bet on the guy that's got it most recently.
Yeah. Cool. Let's move on to wide receiver. For people following along on video, I am flashing up the like running back snaps and usage charts. I will also post these on Twitter. This is sort of another look at running back usage here, but I think we covered a lot in these in depth. So I'll post on Twitter for anybody who wants to look at these numbers in more detail, but won't cover off here on the pod. Let's move on to wide receiver. So here we're looking at wide receiver opportunity versus fantasy points for the wide receivers with greater than 85% of their routes run. So full-time wide receivers. We have fantasy points per game here on the y-axis, and then weighted targets per route run here on the x-axis. For those who are not familiar, weighted targets per route run is the number of targets these players are earning per route, but it is adjusted for the depth of target. So, your 40-yard downfield shot to DK Metcalf is worth more than your, behind the line of scrimmage screen to Rondale Moore. And that's sort of reflected in that metric here. Pat, again, a lot of this is sort of stabilized. I think like we see a lot of names we'd expect to see in the top right here. I think maybe the relevant question for this week, and we touched on it a little bit, is the San Francisco wide receivers in Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. How far are you dropping those guys this week? And yeah, maybe to make it like more concrete, how would you rank, say you have, Gabe Davis, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, and Brandon Ayuk. How are you ranking Ayuk amongst those four guys? I think you're on mute, Pat.
So Pittman, Moore, Gabe Davis. He might be fourth.
Okay.
To be honest, it might be fourth. I just like I was already struggling with the San Francisco guys. It's already feeling like kind of roulette. There weren't really any sign. They had very flat weighted targets per route run across the whole team. Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings as well was pretty flat in terms of the weighted targets per route run. He runs a lot less routes than those guys, but he's continued to be involved, which is like not what we need. And then we lose Jimmy. So, Ayuk he ran a route on 100% of dropbacks last week. And I think he's kind of like their true sort of classic wide receiver one. Deebo's hasn't really like challenged. He hasn't really taken that role back this season after starting as kind of the hybrid still. So I think I would have Ayuk last.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm maybe a little bit more bullish, but I can definitely see how the floor drops out for those guys. I think, just with Ayuk running 100% of the routes, and I'm just a bigger believer in the talent of him than Davis and Pittman. And it's not like, Davis obviously has good quarterback.
If you like routes, I mean, Pittman has literally not missed a route in the Jeff Saturday era. He hasn't in the entire Saturday era. The guy is not taking a route off.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
That is pretty crazy. And Gabe Davis is, he's not that far out, not that insane level that Pittman's at, but he's consistently been like close to 100% routes.
Yeah. He's the route leader in Buffalo over.
So I don't know. I definitely think I think the point is like last week I would have confidently said Ayuk easily over Pittman, Davis, and Moore. And now like I am kind of waffling when having to choose between them. And you seem to be even lower than me on him. So I think overall we can say it's a pretty big hit for.
I mean, now that we got Sam Darnold supporting DJ Moore, we're back in, right?
Yeah, Sam Darnold is
that's what we needed all along.
He's known for stringing a bunch of good games together, so I think we can.
That's what he's known for sure.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Oh man, Nick, on the Gabe Davis thing, like so Nick's comment is seeing Gabe Davis so low on weighted targets per route run is a little worrisome. I've been kind of like tooting this horn this whole year. I was actually pretty high on Gabe Davis in like the offseason when I was drafting best ball or whatever. But he's just been like really bad at earning targets this year. Like he's in the same in terms of like earning targets, he's in the same range of guys like Josh Reynolds, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, Mac Hollins, DPJ. Like that's what we're talking about in terms of like his rate stats. Obviously, he's on the Bills, so bump up those rate stats by the Buffalo's volume. Like that's not reflected on the chart. The fact that Buffalo throws way more than any of those teams, so it's not like as dire as I'm describing, but like it's still pretty bad. Like, I don't know. It's weird for Davis, right? Because he was so efficient on a per route basis, like his whole career leading up to this. It's almost like it's flipped. Like he used to be this really efficient on a per route basis, couldn't see the field. Now it's like he sees the field all the time and like can't earn targets. So I'm trying to understand like maybe longer term view with Gabe Davis. Like what kind of player like do you think we're looking at? Do you have any way to like explain, sort of how bad he's been on a per route basis this year?
Well, he has a first read target this year on 10% of his routes, which is not high at all. Stephon Diggs is at 22%, which is a really good rate. Isaiah McKenzie's at 11%, so higher than Gabe Davis. So that's concerning. That's like a concerningly low rate. And I think it helps explain why he has a 15% target rate. He's a true deep threat with a 16.3 ADOT. So, he's not drawing a lot of targets, and the weighted targets per route run accounts for the ADOT. But in general, like, you shouldn't get like too concerned with a low target rate of 15% because he is, when he does draw a target, tends to be pretty valuable. To that point, I would note he's seeing middle of the field targets traveling at least 10 air yards on 4.5% of his rates, which is actually a pretty high rate. It's the highest on the Bills. So it's like when he is getting deep shots, he's tending to get high value, like middle of the field deep shots that he can, take to the house potentially, or aren't going to necessarily always be like the super tough catches. Amari Cooper rate's really low in this metric, by the way. Like you think about like him, he's always getting like super underneath stuff or like really difficult sideline catches.
Yeah.
So I think, it's not quite as dire for Gabe in some ways, but also like the offense is not designed to run through Gabe Davis. The offense is designed to run through Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis his role is to help take pressure off of Stephon Diggs. Diggs has only been double teamed on 23% of his routes, which is like, it's a high rate, but it's much lower than you see from a guy like Jamar Chase, who leads the league with like I think 33% rate.
Yep.
Or right around there. So I feel like Davis is kind of doing his job. He's drawing coverage, not drawing at a super high rate, but he's drawing coverage enough to keep Diggs as kind of the engine of the offense. They're calling plays to get Diggs the ball a lot more than Davis.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I think you throw him out there and you hope that this is a week where he has a spike week. Like that's who he is. But he's that guy playing with Josh Allen. So you feel okay about it. And then the last thing I would note is that I mentioned the heavy personnel stuff with the Bills. He might benefit from that because Hayden Winks has shown, if you're in 2 wide receiver sets, that's good. If you're one of those wide receivers, you're now competing with not a there's not a third wide receiver on the field, which is good for you to be able to earn targets. And so with that in mind, he's had 7 targets. He had 7 targets against the Browns. He had 7 targets against the Patriots. So I actually feel like maybe this is a week that could be a good week for Gabe Davis, even though they shift to the run. Maybe off of that run, off of those running plays, we get some big plays for Gabe Davis downfield.
Yeah, I like that. And also some people in the chat mentioning the injury and Liam saying, I think 11 days off is big for the Bills. I have seen like some people splice clips together of Gabe Davis running routes and like seemingly limping and stuff. So maybe there is some like ankle or something going on with him too. And maybe after, 11 days of rest, that gets better. I know he's been banged up this year, but yeah, that all makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. Moving on to the next chart. Again, a lot of things that sort of we've seen a lot. Tyreek Hill just absolutely breaking my chart once again at 88% weighted targets per route run. He's got the best role in the league. We see, Amon-Ra crushing it, Jalen Waddle having a pretty strong role. We've seen all these things for weeks. The thing I wanted to ask you, Pat, maybe this is, jumping ahead a little bit, getting into the realm of dynasty. I think we have a big enough sample on some of these rookie wide receivers to have some like dynasty takes about them going forward. So just, putting on the spot here, but off the top of your head, how would you rank? I'm thinking of the five rookie wide receivers that have flashed the most this year. And in my head, that is pretty clearly Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, Treylon Burks, and Drake London. I think you'd put him in here just for sort of his rate stats. How are you thinking about those five going forward, and maybe like a ranking, off the top of your head, 1 through 5 for dynasty?
Wilson 1. Then I think you have to have Olave 2. And I wasn't that high on Olave coming in, but I don't know what else you're looking for at this point.
Yeah, he looks like a stud.
Yeah. Then I would have Burks 3. I think if he hadn't had that concussion, that was going to be an explosion game for him.
Yeah.
I really liked him as a prospect, and I feel like he's shown. You want to talk about like deep over the middle of the field targets? That's like all he's getting. It's beautiful. I think I'm Watson 4. Very similar profile to Olave, where he's getting a ton of deep looks, and he's also the number 1 target earner on the team. You could argue that if anything, I feel like you could argue I have Watson too low. So, apologies to Drake London, but when Kyle Pitts was healthy, they were going to him with their first read targets over London. London had a lot of targets last week, but Olamide Zaccheaus was getting a ton of targets over him 2 weeks ago. And Arthur Smith's probably not getting fired. So we're doing this all over again next year. And Dynasty is very much a year-to-year game. If you're investing in one of these rookies, you need to be thinking about what is their value going to be at this time next year.
Yeah.
And I think another almost year of dealing with this Arthur Smith offense is not going to have us all that excited about Drake London potentially. So I think I'd rather invest in the other guys. Not that Drake London isn't good. I think he's good, but I would have him 5 right now.
Yeah, I think I would have it very, very similar. I think you can nitpick here or there, maybe flip Olave and Wilson, maybe flip Watson and Burks, but I think that's the right order. Just a couple notes on London versus Watson. And again, it's still relatively rough sample or small sample for just the rookie year, but London is sitting at 1.72 yards per route run this year, which is good for a rookie. Definitely not something I'd be scared off of. But Watson, I think, is up at 2.3 yards per route run, which is a really elite rate for a rookie. And like you said, he's going to be tied to Rodgers. I think that's why I would similar to the argument of Arthur Smith being back in Atlanta. I think, Vrabel and his schematic style can be back in Tennessee. I think I would actually say Watson over Burks just for the trade value side of things. I think Watson is the guy that's going to have a higher redraft price next year than Burks. I think, just for being on the Packers offense. And, when he's actually been on the field for a full-time role, he's absolutely just exploding in terms of fantasy points. So I think people will have that in their mind from the trade value perspective. So
the pushback I'd have there, and I think that's a totally fair take. I think it's fine. But the reason I would go Burks ahead, he also has an elite yards per out run right now. Both guys are at a sample level where you'd really love to see more routes to feel confident about saying, this is reflective of their true talent level, but it's still a really good sign even right now. And so, compared to London, Burks is up at 2.19. So he's much closer to Watson than London. And we're also seeing, the offense starting to go through him more. And then like the thing with Burks, I really liked him as a prospect. I thought that he could be kind of this big downfield weapon for the Titans, replacing, some of what AJ Brown was doing for them. Mm-hmm. To see him like doing exactly that is like very exciting. And then you also think about like what's his team look like when Derrick Henry's gone? Are they potentially going to have to throw a little bit more? So I start to see kind of the ultra run heavy part of this team maybe gets a little shakier here before it does in Atlanta. But I agree with you about the redraft thing. I think Watson probably will go ahead of Burks. I think we're talking about like second round pick London, probably maybe early third for Olave.
Wait, did you mean Wilson? You said second round London. Did you mean Wilson?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Wilson.
Yeah.
Second round Wilson, early third Olave, third, fourth turn Watson, and then like Burks in the maybe 4-5. Does that feel right?
That feels like directionally right to me. Yeah, I guess I'm comparing like Waddle was 2-3 turn this year. So yeah, I don't see
he was more like 3-4 turn.
Oh, that's right. He was 2-3 turn before Tyreek got signed, and then Tyreek got signed and he got bumped back, right? Okay. Yeah. So that all seems right to me. I think like Waddle, I think, Wilson's rookie year is like comparable to Waddle's. I think Olave's is too. I'd have to dig more into it, but that all sounds right to me. So yeah, this is a really, now that I'm talking about it, I'm just realizing like those top 5, that's a really strong wide receiver class. I think some of the other guys, obviously Sky Moore, Pickens, Dotson have disappointed, but having 5 guys that are showing this much promise, and will all be, I think we can comfortably say they're all going to be top 6-7 round best ball picks next year. Like that's a pretty exciting class.
Sky Moore, by the way, unless something changes, I think I want to be betting again on him tied to the Chiefs and everything. He's actually flashed on a per route basis, but like, got to keep the price cheap on Sky Moore. He's like, it's very concerning that
we're all trying to find the guy who got his price.
Yeah, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. That was literally me. But yeah, I mean, I think like 13th rounds is probably like what we're looking at right now, maybe 14th, unless he can if he finds a way to get on the field and maintains the efficiency he's shown, I'm willing to get quite a bit more bullish. But right now, the fact they just have no interest in playing him is like extremely concerning. One thing I just want to talk 2 of the other high guys real quick, because Pickens, people have been asked about him in the chat, and I'll also note Jahan Dotson. Both those guys aren't getting open. If you look at this, ESPN rolled out an open score that uses the NFL player tracking data, and I listened to an interview where they're describing it, and it's actually pretty interesting. Like they use like their measure of open changes based on like the situation. So like if your speed is increasing and you have a step on your man downfield, like that's open. So it's not just like separation. It's like it's a pretty nuanced score using the player tracking data. So I think it's pretty interesting to look at. If you look at George Pickens among all wide receivers and tight ends, he ranks 93rd this season in open score. If you look at Jahan Dotson, he's at 103rd. There's only 111 guys that they have in here. AJ Green is the lowest on the list. AJ Green and Robbie Anderson, poor Cardinals, are the 2 lowest on the list. Marquez Valdes-Scantling is 3rd last. Garrett Wilson ranks 10th. He leads the rookie class. Chris Olave ranks 13th. He's 2nd. AJ Brown leads the league. Tyler Lockett is actually tied with him now, and then Tyreek Hill is 3rd. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting, and
that is interesting.
Kind of fits with what we're worried about with Pickens, I think, and Dotson, is that they're just not getting open. So those guys would definitely be. You're getting the low yards per out run with those guys, plus a metric saying they're not getting open. I would definitely be concerned.
Yeah, I'd be concerned. It strikes me that Pickens, like if he's going to break out, it's going to be in like the Mike Williams type of way, where he finds a quarterback that's willing just to get him huge volume even when he's not open, because he's such a good contest and catch guy. But yeah, that archetype is like pretty rare, and as we've seen with Mike Williams, like hasn't always been consistent. So yeah, I think that's kind of what you're betting on with Pickens, but Yeah, players can develop. He can figure that part of the game out, but early returns, like I think, are a bit concerning with him. Let's finish off with tight end here. I know we wanted to do some playoff basketball drafts. So I didn't have a ton of notes at tight end this week. Here we're looking at tight end utilization and efficiency for guys with greater than 60% of routes run. So these are all sort of the full-time tight ends. The big thing I want to note this week is actually not for a guy that comes up on this chart, but I think for the tight end premium sickos out there, for which I know there are many, Chig Okonkwo is someone that is maybe going to be a little bit off people's radar, but I think people should be paying attention. He actually led the Titans in snaps this week at tight end, which had not happened all season. He was like very much a rotational player. He ran 21 of 35 routes to Hooper's 20, saw five targets, like once again, ripped off like a 40-yard chunk gain in the game. He's been really explosive. I think he has like 5 straight games of a play longer than 30 yards. And if you go to this chart here, he has the rate stats are really good with him. He has a 25% targets per route run. His ADOT is 9.5. So he's being used down the field. He's a guy, like, I know the tight end waiver wires in these leagues is pretty barren. I think he's a guy that has like a lot of upside to earn a full-time role down the stretch. And tight end, there's not a lot of upside out there. So he's one guy I would put a flyer on if you need upside at tight end. Any thoughts on Chig?
I like him. Yeah. He's seeing a first read target on 17% of his routes, which is actually just 1% lower than Burks. And so he's second on the team. He's ahead of Robert Woods. They're looking to get him the ball when he's on the field. He has a 25% target rate, which is really good. He's got 2.75 yards per out run, which is really good. This is all small sample size stuff. He's run 100 routes. So it's like all small sample size stuff. But with these rookies, like, we do want to be paying attention when they're flashing elite efficiency that will come down. Yeah. But their role can also increase a lot. And so we just saw the role increase. Also, like, Burks might miss this game. Burks might miss a matchup with Jacksonville, who is terrible against the pass. I mean, that would be very bullish for Chig Okonkwo if he's able to take on a bigger role. And I think what we saw last week was partially driven by Burks being out. Burks obviously went out very early in that game. And so they needed someone else they could go to. Robert Woods and Nick Westbrook-Akine, I believe, combined for 10 yards in that game.
Terrible.
It was absolutely disgusting. So they have no playmaking right now. Yeah, they literally combined for 2 catches for 10 yards. I think he's pretty interesting. I'm actually going to float him in the NFC team. We're desperate for a tight end. I'm going to float him there as a pickup. And that's not even tight end premium. Yeah.
Even non-tight end premium, I think he is like worth add in deeper leagues. Like you said, like, I think also Vrabel, we might get frustrated with his usage in terms of being, leading very run heavy offenses. But I do think Vrabel and the Titans coaching staff is smart in getting their best players on the field. Like, we saw Burks have a very limited role. Once he started playing well, that grew to a full-time role. Like, I have less confidence in some coaching staffs, like, the fucking Colts tight ends when Jelani Woods is 100 yards and he goes back the next week to playing like 20% of snaps for no reason. Like, I don't think the Titans coaching staff is going to sort of like do something as stupid as that. So
I know that was tilting.
Yeah. Anyways, any like other macro thoughts or like any interesting nuggets on tight ends as you've been going through the walkthrough this week? I didn't have a whole lot else. There is some buzz in the chat about McBride. If you have any thoughts there, I'll leave it to you for final word on tight ends this week.
Well, McBride, I mean, check out the ship chasing from last week if you want to hear my thoughts on McBride. I'm just like nervous that he hasn't earned any targets all season. Like, sometimes with these backup tight ends, like especially a guy who's drafted in the second round, like when he gets on the field, he would actually have like a really high target per out run because he's there for like a specific package of plays. But he just hasn't been involved as a pass catcher whatsoever. The Cardinals also like didn't really use the tight end much before Zach Ertz got there, so I don't necessarily buy there's a role that he like has to be in or whatever. I don't know. So I'm not like all that bullish on McBride, but he was a pretty decent prospect. I thought he was the best tight end prospect in the class, although tight end prospects I'm like pretty willing to change my mind on pretty quickly on, depending on what the information we get in the NFL. Pretty hard to project. But I mean that's still, and he was a second round pick, so yeah. I mean I definitely think he could be something. He just hasn't flashed anything so far. I would note Daniel Bellinger was back after brutal eye injury, like broke a bone in his face. 83% route rate last week. That's pretty sweet. Also not getting targets at a really high rate or anything, but he saw 5 targets last week, which, you'd be pretty psyched about if you have McBride. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on.
Yep. Nice. That makes sense. Yeah, I think I'm with you on McBride. A bit concerning. Still has a decent role. We'll see if he at least keeps that.
He'll be out there. Yeah.
Yep. Last 2 guys, I guess, like super deep leagues. Mitchell Wilcox was the Hayden Hurst replacement, and Cade Otton had a pretty big role with Brait out. So maybe 2 other like desperation plays you can look at this week at tight end. Okay, let's move on to the playoff best ball stuff. So yeah, like I mentioned at the top of the show, we're now going to talk through Underdog's playoff best ball contest. So they have the wild card out now. Has $15K up top to first place. I think like a $12,000 entrant size tournament. So pretty big tournament that's out there already. We're gonna start, Pat, before we draft a team, with looking at sort of a macro view on what teams we want to attack in this contest. And to go through that, I have this chart here, which shows these green bars shows the team's percent chance of making the playoffs. With the lighter green color, their chance of making the Super Bowl. I chose that over winning the Super Bowl because that's really sort of like the important probability here. That's the probability that these players get either 3 or 4 games.
Right.
So that's really what we want to care about when we're evaluating these teams. The odds of making the playoffs also important too. Like you are going to have some, you're going to draft some players on teams that you're maybe just banking on for the first or second round game. So that's something we want to look at as well. And then on the bottom of this chart here, in order to sort of look at what teams are potentially undervalued or overvalued, I looked at the number of players on each team that are currently being drafted in this contest, looking at the Underdog ADP. So the number of players that are going in the top 20 picks by ADP, the top 40, and the top 60. And if you look at this chart left to right, I think the market is not stupid. Like Philly, Buffalo, KC, Dallas, a ton of players are going in the top 20 and top 40 of ADP off those teams because those are clearly the teams with the best odds of making the Super Bowl. I think that totally makes sense. But as you go further to the right on this chart, I think we can find some potentially undervalued teams in the AFC. I wanted to highlight Baltimore and Tennessee, where Baltimore they have 0 players going in the top 20 and just 2 players going out in the top 60 picks. That's Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, even though 538 still has them, and even betting markets still have them as a decent odds to make the Super Bowl at around like 8 to 10%, depending on what you're looking at. So,
but who do we take?
Yeah.
Who are we supposed to draft?
That's a gross. Yes, let's talk about Baltimore. I think that obviously is like why there's only 2 players going, because it's so gross. But I think in both Tennessee and Baltimore, like there's an edge where those like the betting markets are telling us, the 538 model is telling us like these teams have decent chances to make the Super Bowl and nobody wants to draft them. So like I think there is some edge in taking like 3 players. You don't have to like overstack them. You don't have to take 5 guys, but throw in your Duvernay, Isaiah Likely, Dobbins, and Baltimore. On Tennessee, maybe throw in your Conquo. Like Burks isn't even getting drafted. Tannehill's not even getting drafted. Like I think.
See, all right, now we're talking. Yeah, give me some Burks and well, that's really the only one that got me excited. But Dobbins jumps out there.
Yeah,
I mean he's definitely someone who like you can tell yourself a story where he's like healthy for the playoffs. And I mean, they've already been leaning on the run game. So yeah, okay. That's a third guy we can draft.
Yeah. The pass catcher, it's so gross. Like, I don't know how I'd pick other pass catchers. Like, I think you would narrow it down to probably DeMarcus Robinson, Duvernay, and Likely as the top 3 non-Andrews pass catchers. But yeah, that feels like flipping a coin.
I'd almost rather go with like an NFC receiver. You know what I mean? Like you're in these drafts, like you're like if you do a Baltimore stack or something, you might end up, having a choice between like Tyler Lockett and DeMarcus Robinson or something, because the Seattle guys have been going really late. So I don't know. I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah, Robinson. That's like what every like gut instinct when I'm drafting. It's so gross, and I don't do it often. Like taking Isaiah Likely over Tyler Lockett, like it's so hard to make that click. But something I'm trying to think through in these tournaments is just like if Baltimore makes the Super Bowl, they're getting 4 games, and like in one of those 4 games, I think like the Duvernay or DeMarcus or Likely is gonna help you advance. And it might not even be a spike week, right? It might just be like you're in, the 3rd round of this tournament. You're playing against like 9 other teams. Half of them like can't even field a roster because they picked the wrong teams, right? Like the other half like didn't, pick sort of more concentrated players, and you get DeMarcus Robinson's like 60 yards and a touchdown game that no one else has. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm trying to think. Where if you just pick, like, we're just kind of thinking about like, we're in the scenario where Baltimore makes the Super Bowl. Like, I probably want more than just like 2 players on their team just for like the cumulative points aspect. So, yeah, I don't know.
What are your thoughts on Baltimore and like, because they, with this Lamar injury, are these odds reflective of the fact? So they're 8-4, and Lamar might miss potentially like 3 games. So now they get the Steelers, the Browns, and the Falcons. So even without Lamar, they could go 2-1. Giving them a loss to the Browns there, but
yeah, it seems like the Ravens do seem a bit risky because there are scenarios where I guess if the Jets and Patriots or like Chargers finish, if one of like the Patriots or Chargers and the Jets finish hot, the Ravens could fall out of the playoff picture completely. I do think like what the 538 model seems to be doing is it you can like adjust their model like for the quarterback adjustment where they're actually like, you see this in the 49ers. They're adjusting the 49ers Super Bowl odds heavily because they're like baking in the fact that Jimmy G is going to be out for the entire playoffs, or like based on the odds, that seems to be what they're doing. For the Ravens, the model seems to be like not like their Super Bowl odds don't change when you do like the current quarterback adjustment or not. So I think what that
feels
means
wrong
like,
to me. It should change.
Yeah, but I think like if we assume that, what I'm saying is like I think it's assuming that Lamar is back to full strength for the playoffs.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think is like the right assumption to make, but
I'm going to their ELO ratings. They have Huntley. They have Lamar at 175 points of ELO and Huntley at 46. So they must just be assuming we get Huntley or we get Lamar back. But
yeah,
but their odds of making it have to go down, especially if Lamar's not fully healthy when he comes back.
Yeah, let's see. It does. So the odds of them making the playoffs drop by 2%. If I should share this on my screen, but if I flip between the 2 models, like quarterback adjusted or not, the odds of making the playoffs do drop, but the odds of winning the Super Bowl don't drop. So what I'm assuming
that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's like the right way to do it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. Like, there's a reason they're under. Like, it feels gross to bet on Baltimore right now. Like, there's a reason they're undervalued. Their offense is not. Even though they've won a bunch of games, their offense have not looked great, even with Lamar, and now he's hurt. So like, it definitely feels like a gross bet, but I'm gonna I think that's like too baked into the players' ADPs at this point. To the point where I think I'm gonna like draft a couple Baltimore teams in this tournament.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nick in the comments here says I've been telling myself stories about Dobbins getting healthy since May, which that's fair. But I think Dobbins is pretty interesting because when we do the FFPC playoff contest, we were picking only one player from each team. The thing to think about is like, what does this pick sort of say about what I'm betting on with this team? Like, how is this team? For example, like if you pick the Titans and you are sort of doing it in your mind where I'm betting on the Titans to win like 3 games. We should probably have Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry's like the engine of their offense, right? If you have Chico Conquo, you're hoping that you get one nice tight end premium game and then they lose. Like they almost have to lose, and you get lucky in that game. So if the Ravens go to the Super Bowl, like I'm not saying Dobbins is definitely healthy, but if Dobbins is healthy and they're able to lean on him, their odds of making the Super Bowl are probably pretty underpriced. So it's kind of a nice correlated bet in that sense. You're making this team to make a run. What would really help them? Healthy Dobbins.
Yep. I like that. Dobbins is definitely my favorite third Ravens pick. Okay. Any thoughts on the Titans? I guess like more macro, like the models, the betting markets are saying like they have a better chance of making the Super Bowl than the Dolphins, Tampa Bay, Seattle, some of these like more fantasy friendly teams. Would you be making any like Titans bets in this format?
One thing I've noticed, I've only done like a handful of these, but one thing I've noticed is that the AFC teams tend to get snapped up like way quicker than the NFC. It's like way more comfortable. Like if you're doing a Bills thing, it's really comfortable to go over and grab a couple NFC teams. On Ship Chasing, we got a Bills stack. That's probably going to be blown up now that they're going to get the bye. But we got a Bills stack. We got, I think it was Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rashad White, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf. That's pretty sweet. You're getting like the whole offense but you can't really do that you can't like build the same thing where you go Eagles and then go get like the core of 2 AFC teams, and much harder to do, at least from the drafts that I've done. So in that sense, the Titans are kind of interesting to me, where at least I know I can get a Burks, who's the number 1 receiver on his team, for a team that's definitely making the playoffs. That feels nice to have in your back pocket. And then I guess the Bengals were kind of easy. Like they were kind of the fallback option. I wonder how much, pricier they are now after they beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think the Bengals prices are way up. I have a ton of Bengals teams already. I think that's the team I'm most exposed to because there was a while where their like playoff odds were only like 60% or something, and now I think we can be pretty confident they're going to make the playoffs. And I think the prices are rising in those guys.
Do you have the teams we built the last time we did this? It might be fun to pull those up.
Yeah, I can pull those up. Yeah, we should definitely look at those. I think we did do a Bengals team, maybe 2 Bengals teams. Anyways, last thing I wanted to know before we pull that up, San Francisco is clearly overvalued when look at this chart. That's obviously because of the Jimmy G injury. Like the betting markets and the 538 model think that's a massive hit to their like chances of making the Super Bowl. So there were so many 49ers going early in these drafts. And I think it'll like McCaffrey's, I think just by anchoring effect, he's going to stay up in the top 10 picks for a while in these drafts. That's like the biggest fade right now, I think, in these drafts is McCaffrey. And you can see it at like the player level on this next chart. We're looking at here, Underdog ADP on the y-axis, and then odds of advancing to the Super Bowl on the x-axis here. And yeah, McCaffrey's going like way too high when you factor in their chances of making the Super Bowl now. Unless we get some like magic news on Jimmy G in the next couple of weeks. I think we should jump into some drafts here now. Pat, any other thoughts before we go into it?
No, let's do it.
Okay. Do you want to I see you already have your tab pulled up. Do you want to take over for that?
Yeah, we can do it on mine.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll look to pull up those teams that we drafted at the end.
Well, we got to know our exposures,
Our exposures through 2 drafts is really key.
It's important. You gotta manage them.
I think I did the dumb thing where I didn't label the drafts that we did, so it might take some more investigative work to figure out what. I have like 10 of these teams, so I'm not sure exactly what ours were. Yeah, the teams we drafted were so good that I just intentionally didn't want to label them. So I can take the money at the end. Oh wait, no, I lied. I did label them.
Sweet.
Here, wait. Let me screen share them quickly. Let's see. Okay, so you're able to see the Underdog tab now, right?
No, I'm still seeing the Underdog odds.
Oh shit. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm still new to StreamYard. Give me 1 second.
Nick pointing out the Commanders at 69% chance seems like a great cheap backdoor.
I think
it does feel pretty decent.
Yeah. I was going to mention that too. Like, I think at least McLaurin should be, like, you're seeing Eckler and even like Jacobs drafted in some of these. Like, that seems dumb. Like, McLaurin should be the pick if you're looking for like the guy who has a big ceiling in round 1 to advance some teams.
Right. Yeah. And I do like the Dolphins. I wonder where they're going now.
Yeah. Okay, Pat. I don't know why the screen sharing is not working. So why don't we do you want to just pull up a draft and I can just verbally say what our teams were? For some reason I can't.
Yeah, but you have to bring my screen up because I'm not logged into StreamYard.
Oh, okay. There we go.
All right. So we got mine going. Okay.
Oh, wait. I figured out how to get mine. Okay. I'm going to... Here's our teams. Figured it out finally. We'll make sure our draft doesn't fail. But we did a Eagle stack, Hurts, Sanders.
Our draft did fail.
AJ Brown, and the draft failed. Okay, we'll go back to it in a sec. So we got Eagles in Baltimore with
all right.
We got T. Higgins in that. That seems we took a lot of Baltimore players. We were just talking about how gross that is, and we took a lot of them.
Only an idiot would do it.
Oh. Took Duvernay and Likely. And then our
Burrow stack.
We got a Philly and Cincinnati stack. This team is sexy.
This team's sick, dude.
And Miami, 3 of the best Miami players.
Holy crap. All right. I don't even know if we need to do anymore, man.
Yeah, we might be done. We're not going to get that Cincinnati value.
That team's amazing.
So
how do we do that?
We got Mixon, Jamar, T. Higgins, and Burrow, and then Hurts, Goddard. Yeah, the Philly part of it is a little weak. It's Hurts, Gainwell, and Goddard. But if it's a Philly-Cincinnati Super Bowl, we have so many good players in that matchup. So
I mean, plus we have Waddle and Tyreek, so we're good with the.
Yeah, that's
is this working? What's going on? Okay, we just started.
Yeah. Okay.
So who's your number 2 pick now?
It's either Allen or Mahomes. I think Hurts. The only reason I go Allen over Hurts is because the Eagles have a 76% chance of getting the bye now, and the Bills are only at like 45. So I think that gives me.
Are you building 2 quarterback teams with Allen, or just one?
I think you can do it either way. I think I would go 2 this early in the year, because it's not like the second quarterback isn't like dead to help you, even if Allen doesn't get the bye. You know what I mean? Like there could be a week where I don't know, Josh Allen has a bad game and the Bills still beat the Jets in round 1, and you needed like points from Tom Brady to advance or something. So I don't think you have, like, if you get completely boxed out of quarterback, like, I think it's okay to just take Josh Allen at a 45% chance, but I think I would lean 2. What are your thoughts there?
I've been doing the dumb thing where I'm going 1. Because it's like, what is, you give yourself the chance of building a team like we just, although that team does have 2 quarterbacks. So I don't know. I'm fine either way. I'm fine to build 2. Maybe I should build 2 since you're being prudent about
it. Yeah, I don't know. I think it can be sort of a game time call based on like if you really need a player from an opposing team or a Bills pass catcher to like make your Super Bowl make sense, I think it's justifiable. If it feels like kind of a luxury pick either way, I think like you might as well go with the quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. I think we're gonna have I don't even care if someone snipes us. We're gonna have the Gabe Davis decision here at either pick 2 or pick 3. I've been fading Davis on Josh Allen teams, and that might be stupid. But like, oh man, it's just so hard for me to take like Gabe Davis over. Let's see, who would the NFC guys be here?
Well, the NFC guys got a lot tougher with Debo,
Yeah, because Debo's not really. Do we go Dalvin or Gabe or Pollard?
We could go Pollard and play for Dallas and see if Gabe comes
I like
back.
that. I think I like that. Man, it's with SF like so dinged now that makes this pick pretty tough.
Yeah, we need to get something on the NFC side, and it's not going to be Eagles probably. Dallas looks so good.
Yeah, and that the ADP values have not caught up on like Schultz and Gallup, and now they'll probably get sniped from us. But you can get those guys pretty late, and like Gallup's role and like production has really ticked up lately. So
it really has, yeah.
And
they're like smoking teams right now, but in the playoffs, both them and the Eagles are like kind of exciting in that they might be actually pushed for a full 4 quarters.
Yeah,
I think we should go Gabe now.
Okay.
Like, we get a stack. I don't know. Feels like.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think like we could have played it by taking Sanders or Cook, I think, and then like we could set up like either Dallas or Philly or either Dallas or Minnesota in the NFC. But I think this is fine. Yeah, like Gabe Davis still has a huge ceiling. So
right.
He's not going to last to our next pick.
No, he definitely won't. Wow, so it's CD, Dak, and then Burrow. I wouldn't take. Although I wonder when we took Burrow on that Hurts team, but that feels a little early.
Yeah, I think pretty late.
Yeah, dude, you're competing against our Burrow team.
Yeah, you can't draft Burrow in this format.
You just can't draft him now. We got him so cheap.
Even though we drafted him, and we actually drafted him in the way too early wild card, and this is the wild card, but
it's a different form.
You still
different tournament. Okay,
it's a different tournament, but I wouldn't advise it.
I wouldn't advise it.
It's kind of embarrassing when we screenshot our Burrow team versus yours. That like for the bid equity, you can't really do it.
It's not even the same tournament. Oh man! All right. So what are we doing? Juju just went. I have an idea.
Okay. I have some thoughts. If can you scroll down a little bit?
Yeah.
I want to see who's still. Okay.
Oh,
fuck!
Devontae Smith is who I wanted. Yeah, that would have been a really nice pick. We could go with McKenzie. We could go with Waddle. Could go with Andrews, I guess. Thoughts? It's all AFC stuff, so this is all flipped.
This sucks. I guess I'll go with Waddle. Just play for Buffalo, Miami in the AFC Championship game, and
yeah, I guess.
I just feel like it's like taking McKenzie or Singletary when we can get like Knox or Cook later. Just feels like, I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I don't want Singletary. I think I'm McKenzie here. Is our next pick. McKenzie, or we could go with something NFC, but I think it has to be NFC now.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait till this guy picks. Well, whatever. If he snaps us, like
I actually know. I know what we should have done.
Gallup or what are thoughts on just going Gallup or Schultz with all these picks? Like, is it way too early?
Probably. I think we might be able to get at least one of them with our next pick.
Okay. What were you thinking?
Godwin.
I like that.
Gets us to an NFC team.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we can tack on a second bill later.
Yep. Let's see that. Yeah. The Waddle, it's always tough with the Waddle pick. Just doesn't feel as like clean, but I think just at some point, just getting the guy who's going to be projected for like the most points in a week makes sense. And if Buffalo and Miami make it to the championship game, like that can be really valuable. But yeah, it doesn't.
It's tough because you don't feel good. You're like, it's such a dumb pick if these guys play each other, in like the first or second round.
Yeah.
So I guess they wouldn't be able to play each other in the first round, right? I don't know. It's so fluid in the AFC.
Yeah. Brock Purdy going at fifth round. It's going to be a real shame when Josh Johnson is starting next week.
Yeah. But I do. I mean, yeah, the Waddle pick's tough because you can see it paying off, but it's just like harder to know.
Yeah, it's just like any of the good picks there were so far down, and like I don't see any names here that have gone yet that I was like, oh, I wish we took him instead of Waddle. Like Mixon, Debo, like none of these other guys make sense. I guess we could have gone Goddard, but then like there was no other Philadelphia guys to pair him with really.
Right.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Also, I will point out Waddle. I don't know. Oh, fuck, Gallup win. That's annoying. Waddle did leave with an injury last week too, right?
Yeah, he's kind of dinged up though. I don't think it's the type of thing that would affect a playoff run. So I think we could go McKenzie. We could also go with another Buccaneer or Schultz. Do you want to grab McKenzie here? This is or Singletary.
I kind of like getting a Tampa Bay guy, and then we get our pick of a Buffalo running back just to get a running back with Josh Allen.
Okay. You want to do Mike Evans?
Yeah, I like Mike Evans.
All right.
Because I think there is I think we should get a Buffalo running back here because that way we're like guaranteed to at least have like one running back spot in the Super Bowl if the Bills make it, right?
That's smart.
That gives us some flexibility where like we don't need to get a Tampa Bay running back if we get boxed out or something like that.
Do you have a preference between them?
I'll go Cook.
Yeah.
It's just more fun. And I don't know, like I just think they're kind of like, I think in the playoffs, things just seem to be trending in the direction that would go Cook. I think it's definitely a toss-up, but
now by ADP here to get Singletary at a pick 38, he's got a 22.7 ADP. Does that factor in for you at all? Is the market efficient?
I don't think the market's efficient. Would you be Cook or Singletary?
I mean, Cook's way more fun.
Yeah. I think
what do you know the market? You don't know anything.
Yeah, the market's dumb. I think like, I don't think the market's dumb, but I do think ADP takes a little while to like. There's not a huge volume of drafts on these. Like I think it's a pretty justifiable pick.
All right.
It may just be me doubling down on what I did this summer, which was take 0 Singletary and take only Cook, and that has blown up in my face. But maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe it hasn't. You just got to advance the teams with Cook with other players, and then all of a sudden you get to be like, I got a low-end guy, dude. This is the whole point. I have a team, one of my redacted teams that I have checked occasionally, and I took Cook over Ramondre Stevenson in that league. It's a pretty early draft, I assume. Yeah, but it's in first place, so now I'm like, maybe that was genius.
That was actually you. Yeah, that was always the thesis of the play, that you knew Cook would be a bad pick.
My other picks were so good. I should make a bad pick here.
I'll have to go off on a bit of a rant, but I've seen all like Best Ball Galaxy Brain Twitter being like, guys, like you should actually like not be excited about the high advance rate players, like low advance rate
bad
players.
If you have Jacob.
It's bad if you have all the good players, which I'm like, okay, mathematically I get it, but like how is that actionable, guys? Like how are you predicting the low advance rate players? Like like if anyone can tell me how to do that, then like yeah, I don't know. It just seems like a ridiculous
thing. Yeah, it is a bit, isn't it? All right, I think we have an easy pick if it gets to us.
Yeah, I do too.
And then, oh, sorry, I keep forgetting to put the draft board back on. Sorry, viewers.
We got Jake. Schultz, right? Is that what you're thinking?
I think Schultz is kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think Dallas. Yeah, that's like the most likely Super Bowl scenario we have on the NFC going.
So now we're live for 2 different Super Bowls.
Yep.
And then let's see. I'm gonna go back to here. So we could go Knox. We could go Rachaad White.
I think
probably done on Dallas.
Dallas is tough. What are the quarterbacks that are left? Just thinking about.
Oh, that's a good point.
So Geno is our last chance at a quarterback, but like, wait, what are the Seahawks odds of making it? It's not even guaranteed. Oh, it's 80%. I think we should go with White or Fournette here, and then if Geno is available for us in the very last round, I would consider it. But I like locking up another Tampa.
What about Knox? Does that hold any? So we already have 2 Bills, but that would be a third.
It'd be a fourth, right? Wait, we have 3.
Do we?
We have Davis. Oh, sorry, you mean plus Allen?
Yeah.
I would go White, but Knox is fine.
All right, we got White. I couldn't find him for a second. I started to panic.
Yeah, getting auto-drafted George Kittle would have been pretty brutal.
That would have been a pretty bad way to end this team.
We'd have to take Josh Johnson in this next pick to justify.
Oh, God. All right, so I think we could go Geno here, and we could go. I think at this point, if we didn't get Geno, I would say Knox, but we'll see.
Yeah, if Knox is available, I don't know. Knox versus Geno.
No, I'd be Geno too, but I think I'd be Knox over the rest of the.
Yeah.
I mean, Trent Sherfield just won, so.
Yeah, like who would the Dallas pick be? Would it be? I guess it would be Noah Brown or James Washington. Other like at Tampa, I guess you could go Julio or Fournette, but that seems like kind of gross.
Yeah. I think we couldn't go Fournette. We have to kind of make that bet, but Julio, I guess, would be in play. Although then it's like we should probably have Brady.
Yeah,
we made a huge stack on the Bucks.
The thing about Tampa that's great is like they have such a good chance of hosting a first round playoff game at this point. That like I think you can feel, even though the team's not great, I feel pretty good about like their chances of getting 2 games in the playoffs just because of that home playoff game. I guess it would be against Dallas, which is maybe something that we fucked up.
All right, so we're on the clock. So the decision point is Knox and we play for the Bills not to get the bye, and the team's basically dead if it does, or Geno because the Bills are going to get the bye. But then that gives the Bills a better odds of making the Super Bowl, which is what we need to happen.
I think we should go Knox because if I'm thinking about this right, I'm pretty sure like we stacked up Dallas and Tampa Bay, which is actually maybe kind of dumb, right? Because if Tampa Bay wins their division and Dallas is the best wildcard team, that means they play round 1.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
So I'm saying because we did that, we want to like maximize the number of players we have left in future rounds, which I think leads us to Knox over Gino. But that's something.
Dallas needs to win the NFC East.
Yeah,
or San Francisco needs to crater so that they really need to crater. All right, let's do another one of these before I call it.
Yeah. It's not really good to end the draft with that was pretty dumb. So
when half of your team FF Doom was saying that's what I was trying to say. Yeah, all right. Well, you know what? We learn by doing on this show. We learn by doing. And what you're not supposed to do is to stack up two teams that play each other in round one.
No, we actually did this intentionally as sort of like a teaching moment for all of you guys.
Yeah, now you guys know.
Yeah. I do remember though, like so the Cowboys still have a 21% chance of winning their division. Like I remember last year trying to do all this like mapping out of what teams are going to play what. There's 5 weeks left in the regular season. Like there's going to be so much chaos that like getting too micro about being like, oh, this team's going to play that team. Like it's a lot is up in flux. I probably would try to stay away from like Dallas, Tampa Bay stacks because of like the, more than likely chance they're going to play each other, but it's right. I don't think it really matters that much.
That's probably the only one.
The
one that we just did.
Yeah. That's the only thing you shouldn't do.
Literally the only thing to avoid is what we just did.
All right, we got a headline for our show, at least the one thing to not do.
The one mistake not to make. There you go.
All right, this will be. Oh, we are going to still have a chance at one of the quarterbacks. I thought maybe
Justin Jefferson. That's an interesting one. All right, Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think not overthinking that one makes sense.
Yeah, get ourselves some Philly. Getting Hurts 4 is kind of nice. Might be a little easier to build with him.
Yep.
And then what do you? So okay. Obviously, if we have a chance to stack him, we're stacking, but we don't have a chance to do that because AJ Brown just went.
Yeah.
So I feel like AFC wide receiver makes sense, and we've got a bunch of dudes to pick from.
Yep. We'll have a lot of options. I think Kelsey's going to go. He would be I think, no-brainer if he's available, but then after that, it's like a bunch of guys that we can go with.
What's Miami's odds of making the Super Bowl?
They're lower than the Bengals considerably. So
we should probably go Jamar.
I would strongly lean Jamar here over Tyreek. I think like there's this anchoring effect in these ADPs where the Bengals were all so low when they like were 50-50 to even make the playoffs, and it just hasn't caught up yet. Like Mixon is way too low in these things still. Cincinnati looks really good.
Yeah. And the coaching's better than I thought they'd be.
Yeah. See, this is like CMC. There's value in doing these drafts now while the SF ADPs are way up there. Like McCaffrey in the second round. I'm sorry for whoever this is watching this, but I think that's just like an unjustifiable pick.
You did. I thought maybe you were gonna kind of go like there. I'm sorry, you might be watching, but you're a fucking moron.
Actually, we're changing the name of the YouTube to 2 things to not do in Underdog.
Yeah, we only made one of them.
Yeah. It's just like their path to the Super Bowl is so thin now with Brock Purdy that, like, if you're taking a player in the second round who is like so likely to not make it far in the playoffs, like you're just gonna lose, I think.
I'm with you. I agree.
Sorry to the listeners if you took Christian McCaffrey. You can rip us in the chat for what we did in our last team.
Yeah, we made an unjustifiable draft. That's only one pick, so you're doing all right. All right, what are we doing here? We got. I think maybe we could go Devontae. We could go Higgins.
We got Miles Sanders there too.
Could also go Burrow. We probably need another quarterback. I know I just made fun of Jake. For
I wouldn't. I don't think I'd go quarterback. I'd be between Sanders, Higgins, or Devonta. I kind of like Sanders just for the running back points, like
the
scarcity argument.
All right, let's do Sanders.
I just really like the quarterback running back stacks in these way more than I do in like a traditional format, just because like those are kind of the two scarce positions in a way. And if you're just like, if the Eagles are making the Super Bowl, like I think a Sanders team, like I don't know, just in the weeks where Hurts like doesn't have a massive game, like Sanders can really help you. I don't know.
The Eagles are also so willing to shift their approach, like maybe more than any other team in the league. They'll play the matchup, so you could have, and we're going to be drafting a second quarterback here anyway.
Yeah.
So we could. I think it makes sense.
So we still have a choice between T and Devonta here.
I think I'm Devonta.
Yeah, I think I am too.
Right, get the stack. Now we're probably done on the Eagles.
I think we have to be done on the Eagles, which is
But this is a very high value stack that we're getting. Or are you T? Are you having second thoughts?
No, I like Devonta.
Okay.
I was gonna say like wait for Goddard, but the Goddard injury thing kind of scares me a little bit. And I think like Devonta, I don't know, like Devonta and AJ Brown has been a lot closer than I thought it was going to be this year. Like obviously AJ Brown is still like the alpha, but it's kind of like trying to think of a good comparison. It's a little bit like the Jamar Higgins thing where I think like
it is a bit.
Smith can be the Higgins and have like a massive week. Like he showed that this year a little bit.
Yeah, I like that comp.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like there's two really strong picks. Oh, one of them goes. Mixon was who I was gonna say.
Yeah, that would have been good.
What about Burrow here? We're now playing for a Cincy Philly Super Bowl.
I like Burrow here.
We need to get a second quarterback anyway.
We need to get a second quarterback. And it's not like there's not an obvious if like Mixon was still there, then I would definitely be Mixon. But if without another obvious next pick,
we're kind of picking a second AFC team or tacking on Goddard, but we can't really afford to tack on Goddard, I don't think. Because they're getting the bye.
They're getting the bye. It's 76% chance. Yeah, I mean, like there obviously is a universe where the Cowboys or the Vikings get the bye. Interesting, 538 actually has the Cowboys has a higher chance of getting the bye than the Vikings do. I guess it's because they play the Eagles head to head once,
and they're just better.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just really good.
And they're better. That too. But their record is like the point being the Cowboys record is 9-3 and the Vikings are 10-2. So just thought it was interesting. The model says they have a higher chance of getting the bye, even with like the extra game they have to make up. But okay, should we go Baltimore and get the other AFC team?
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, we can get Andrews here. Get our other AFC team here.
I like that, and then we can tack on.
I guess we could go NFC as well because we do have a Burrow chase, so we're not. I kind of like Andrews over Godwin.
Yeah, let's do it. We talked about Baltimore to start the show.
Tampa Bay looks so weak.
They do. Baltimore just barely beat the Broncos, so I'm not that fired up about that either.
That's true too. But the Broncos actually at least have a good defense.
They do have a good defense, yeah.
And maybe Dobbins.
It is so funny that if the Broncos just had if they had like Detroit, I'm trying to think of like an average offense. Like Detroit's even maybe better than average. Like if the Broncos had like the Jags offense, I think they would be like 8-4 this year.
Yeah. Yeah. They would be. Because that's a good one because the Jags defense is so bad as well. Like what if they had the Raiders offense? Would they like it might be 9-3?
They might be like they'd be like the Vikings like level.
Yeah. That's right. That's essentially what the Vikings are.
Yeah.
Although they don't even have the Vikings defense is much worse than the Broncos.
Yeah.
The poor Broncos defense, man. What a wasted year. All right. What do we got? What are we looking for? We're looking for some Ravens, some Bengals, not a ton. I guess we
I guess I would like Boyd here. I don't think ADP matters that much. That just feel out of the teams we have, that feels like the best player available.
Yeah.
We're making a big bet on the Bengals. Yeah.
Yeah, that feels all right to me.
Like the other players I'm thinking about, so we get sniped later, would be like for the teams we have, like Dobbins, I think is in play later. I think Pirine is actually even potentially in play later.
Well, that's an interesting thought. Yeah.
Just as like a guy that could get us 7 points in a week if the Bengals advance, plus the contingent upside. Like no one's taking Pirine in this format, which I think is somewhat interesting. We know his role is like massive if something happened to Mixon.
We probably could go with like an NFC extra piece, which I guess would be Barkley, but I don't love that.
I don't love that either. If we were gonna go to like random NFC running back, I would probably go back to like the Leonard Fournette or Rachaad White before I went with Barkley.
What about Walker? Yeah.
Yeah, or Walker. Walker's a good one. Actually, I don't hate Walker here as just a way to get running back points and help us advance. Because I think the other guys we like Dobbins and Pirine and stuff, we can get later. I like Walker or like White here, I think, would be my two guys.
Let's go Walker.
Yeah.
I feel like we've done a lot of Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I like that. And then we could maybe go third running back, I guess.
I mean, at this point, we could like Lockett wouldn't be a horrible pick either because we would.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
We would technically be in play for a Cincinnati-Seattle Super Bowl.
We need things to break right here with like who plays who. But we're still limiting to 4 teams.
Which I think, I think is fine. Seattle would be, I don't know. Predicting Seattle's seed is really tough right now. They could win the division now with Purdy in it, and for the 49ers. They could also be the wild card team. It's a tough one to predict.
So we could go Dobbins here, or we could go Lockett here. How would you rather play that?
I would go Lockett just for I just like the points that Lockett can give us, and I think we can
just like that he's going to wildly outscore Dobbins.
Yeah,
that seems like a fair reason to take.
Yeah, because if we get sniped on Dobbins, like Gus, I don't know, is Gus Edwards that different of a pick from Dobbins, or is Pirine that much different of a pick? I think we should take a running back here. Like I like Dobbins the most, but I'm okay with one of those two other guys, I think.
Pirine's interesting because like we did a one-off Andrews, which he's Andrews. Like it kind of makes sense, if they play 2 or 3 games, like he could be awesome.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we need to make this big bet on Baltimore, especially since we already have Burrow. So maybe add, and we have Boyd, so maybe Pirine would be.
To your point, is it? I guess like the math only works for a Philly-Baltimore Super Bowl if we take another Baltimore player here, right? Because if we want to like keep that outcome in play where it can be Philly-Baltimore and we have 5 players in the finals, we need to take a Baltimore player here.
I think we're dead if it's Philly-Baltimore, right? Like we have Burrow, Chase, and Boyd.
But if it's Philly-Baltimore, don't we have like and Hurts is the quarterback?
Right. We have Hurts, yeah.
We have Hurts, Sanders, Devonta, and Andrews. Like, I don't think that's crazy where it would be in play for.
All right, maybe Dobbins is the move.
Yeah. Because there could be where like if Baltimore makes it to the Super Bowl, they're probably like doing it in kind of a gross way. That's just a ton of Andrews points and not much else. But you still would want like some player to get you points in the finals, which could be Dobbins. I don't know.
Yeah. Ryan is saying Cincy and Baltimore are pretty unlikely to play each other. So that makes Dobbins more interesting.
Makes sense. I trust him.
All right. So I feel like we did this one. This one was better. This one was not a mistake that you must avoid. So that's good. That's always step
I
one.
like no, this one's it because we could be a Cincy. We have 4 Super Bowls, I think, that all work. Like we
have 4 Super Bowls. Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, I think.
So now we're saying we need to run hot. Obviously, these 4 teams need to advance. We basically need to run hot to where these teams are actually in line to play each other and then do play each other in the championship games. So now we're cooking here.
Yeah.
Ryan says both Ravens and Bengals have tiebreaker over Titans for what would be the 3 versus 4 seed. So,
wow, Ryan already knows his playoff tiebreakers for 3 versus 4 seed. That's pretty impressive. I need to get on that level. I wonder why the Bengals beat the Titans. I think that must be what it is. The Bengals and Ravens both have beaten the Titans. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yes, and let's see. All right. So this one, this was the other one, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I like this team is fun. I like it. What's mistake?
I can't even how this dude one mistake.
It's gonna look a lot better when we're screenshotting this team that won.
I think this one I did before the week, and I just like went. I was like, I'm going Hurts 1 solo quarterback, and then they won in a huge fashion, and now this team's dead. But kind of a fun team.
Yeah, you never know.
Fun dead team. You never know. Come on,
fun
Dallas.
Dead team. Oh, that was fun. I'm so addicted to these drafts.
They are fun. Would recommend.
Cool. Well, that was a lot of fun, Pat. Thanks for hopping on. I know obviously you guys will be doing ship chasing tomorrow night. What are we talking about? Playoffs scenarios for the teams, or what are we doing there?
Talking playoffs, yeah. We're going to be probably without Pete, I would assume. I've not heard any news, but
yeah,
we'll assume no Pete tomorrow, but still swing by, check us out. We'll be doing the show.
Awesome. Sounds good. And like I mentioned at the top, you can follow me at Sherman FFB for all the charts. I'll post the playoff charts I showed quickly, as well as the normal weekly stat chasing charts. But yeah, go have fun and draft some of these playoff basketball teams, and good luck to everybody in the fantasy playoffs this week. We'll see you all next week.